still working? All right, good. All right, before we get to the quiz questions, I want to quickly go over some things here. Now, I emailed this to you all last night. This is given to all elective sociology classes or upper division classes. So if you're in a social family class, you're going to get this, or it'll be different, but you'll get this. Go over this quickly. Okay. What they asked me to do was find a passage that had a particular perspective or viewpoint about deviance. Those of you who've been paying attention in class, it should be pretty clear what perspective this is from. But so read this piece and answer the questions at the bottom. I tried to take out some of the things that identified exactly what it was. But this is a piece looking at deviance from one particular perspective. Okay? So read the following passage and then write at least 250-word response to this. Write it on another piece of paper, put your name on it, bring it in next Wednesday, and it will count as 20 points towards your final quiz grade. So based on the passage, what is the main thesis or argument of the passage? In that, write this down, I want you to tell me what theoretical perspective it is. Functionalism, conflict, symbolic interactionism, postmodernism, whatever. Okay? If you're confused about that, you can look online about what those things are if you have your Social 2 textbook that some of you took. Number 2, regarding the main argument or point that's being made, what assumptions does the author make and what supporting evidence does he or she provide? Okay? So what's the main thesis? Plus the main argument. So what is the perspective? What is the main perspective view of deviance? And then what is their main argument? That deviance is what? Is determined by what? And what does that lead to? Third, what personal assumptions of your own might influence how you understand and respond to this passage? That one you're going to have to interpret a little bit on your own. But basically, give on some levels how your view of this would change, or do you disagree with it, or maybe you've experienced things that would back this up, or maybe you've experienced things with the opposite of this. Okay? You'll see when you read it. And then number 4, respond to the passage and its arguments by drawing on course material. So we looked at things like the construction of deviance. Okay, who gets to decide what deviance is? If you actually look at your notes from the first part of class, you'll see this. Okay, do you agree or disagree with the argument advanced in the passage above? Explain your thinking as you consider all sides of the issue. You make a conclusion one way or the other. You might want to compare this perspective on crime and deviance with the functionalist perspective or another perspective. You can guess that this isn't the functionalist perspective. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on that? I know these questions are kind of, when I first read this, I was like, these questions don't necessarily fit right. But answer as best you can. Basically, tell me what perspective it is, what evidence they used to back up what they said, and how you interpret this through your own personal value and belief system. And then, bring in course material. For example, one of the things we looked at was what Hitler and people in the Nazi Party were talking about was deviant until what? They were weirdos and deviants until what?
Until they made it law.
Yeah, until they took power and now they're the who?
They're in charge.
Right. We call them elites, right? Power elites. Yeah. So power elites get to determine. Can you see where this is going? I tried to make this pretty clear cut, but also to where you have to interpret this. So if you don't know what perspective this is, you're going to have a little bit of problems. Anyway, all right. Anybody have any questions on that? That's due Wednesday, and 250 words. Type it up, print it out, bring it in. And then I will grade them. And I won't be able to turn these back into you, but I will put the grade up on Blackboard. Also, your second test, it's taking me some time to grade these. I'll try to get them done as quickly as possible. I'm having a lot of... my dad's kind of sick, so I'm going to deal with this stuff. So, and I got a lot of other things going on. But I'm trying to get those done as soon as I can, hopefully by this weekend at the latest. So be patient with me. It's like the last bit of grading that I have to do I did grade for my other classes, but I have to finish these all up, so please be patient with me. So don't send me a bunch of emails on Thursday about why my grade wasn't up. So don't worry about it. We'll get it up in time. All right? All right, any other questions? Yes?
Are we getting another paper to do?
A final?
Yeah.
No, the quizzes are going to act as the final, and with your attendance too. So, and then it's assessment. Okay, just do your best on it. It's not going to be an A, B, C thing, but if you don't do a good job on it, if you only give me 100 words, you're going to get a 10 or something like that. Okay, so just don't do that. All right, and I will put that up on Blackboard as well. Okay. Now, told you last time to watch this show. We're going to start out by watching a little bit of this. This is the second. I think this is the second episode. Yes.
That's season 2. That's so cool.
That's all right, though. That's all right, because I want this one anyway. This is one where she's talking about healing and things like that. So, in general, what kind of issues was her ability causing with her family in the first episode? Jeff?
She blatantly said her abilities definitely come first before her family most of the time.
So maybe she probably did she find out about her powers before she got married or afterwards?
Okay.
So maybe she shouldn't have gotten married, right?
Well, I read something about her and she said that after 9/11 happened, it's like that's when it like really like started coming out for her.
That's interesting. So Jeff, do you want to add something?
No, I just think that she's a kook.
You just think she's a weirdo?
I'm not denying the existence as a whole of clairvoyance, but I think that she's full of crap.
Like her personality is a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas John Edwards may be a little more controlled.
Yeah.
Like John Edwards, if you saw him walking down the street and he didn't open his mouth, you'd never know that that's what he was about. With this person, you'd think she was into something.
She's more for the celebrity
Yeah.
than for the actual.
So you think she's got a little bit of vanity, or?
Oh, I think it's complete vanity and narcissism in her point of view. She's doing this because she, like what you said, she doesn't. It happened after 9/11, just randomly.
Not even that. I mean, like you said, the way she conducts herself, like that first, like, supposed reading that she gave at a
You guys,
deli.
come on.
Like, she had, first of all, she had to announce herself to the entire deli. She couldn't just, like, quietly go up to the person behind the counter.
And did she take money for her readings?
No. Well, not this one. But she
When you make an
does.
appointment, she does.
Yeah.
When you have cameras following you.
Yeah.
And from what you saw with Edgar Casey, did he seem like he went, now near the end of chapter 13 he sounded like this. Like, does anybody remember, what did he want to do, what did him and, I believe his name was David Kahn, who one of the readings said that you never won't work until you get a Jewish person working with you. That's what one of the readings said. And you'd think the readings would be more specific and tell you exactly who this person was. You don't have to play some guessing game because there's more than just one Jewish person in Kentucky at the time. But him and this guy David Kahn got together and they said, "Hey, we can use the readings for this." What they want to do?
They wanted to predict the future.
That was part of it, but something more specific. They got back from World War I. What did they want? Oil wells. And Casey seemed, first of all, you see this progression of his sort of doubting this is from God and then sort of slowly admitting that this might be what the gift that was given to him and then remember the thing I read last time where they pulled his fingernail up and they were jamming hat pins through his cheek and he pretty much had it then. And then, question number 1, what happened? She was photoshopped. Twice. It reminds me of, during the Passion of the Christ, Jim Caviezel got struck by lightning twice when he was doing the Passion of the Christ. If I get struck by lightning when I'm filming a movie where I'm playing Jesus, I'll see you guys later. You know they always say, "May lightning strike me dead," or whatever. I mean, man, when you get, it's bad enough to get. It reminds me of like the Great Outdoors. That one guy got struck in the head 77 times. You don't usually survive one lightning strike, okay? You get 2 on the same film set, little weird, a little strange. But anyway, so potentially Casey and other people around him were suggesting that his Photoshop burnt down partly because he wasn't doing what was was asked to him by God. That he'd been given this gift and he was just pissing it away. He wasn't taking advantage of it. He wasn't helping people. And if you actually look at it here on, he changes his mind. Let's see where that is. On page 144 to 146. And we'll get to this here in a minute. Let me pull the lights in. It says here on page 140, actually it starts on 144. Wait a minute. No. You okay? You got the. If you got the flu or cold, you can leave. You know how I feel about contagious diseases. It doesn't matter. Look, just know that you can leave if you want. I don't want people coughing to death. We'll call the ambulance if you need it. Anyway. Alright, so what happened was one of his friends, or one of the wives of one of his friends, whose husband was a doctor, says here, goes on here, it says, Edgar returned to Bowling Green the following, that's Bowling Green, Kentucky, not behind, or New York. There's a place called Bowling Green, south in the city. The following November, Thomas Poorhouse Jr. was born a 7-month-old baby. He was so small and fragile that he was carried around on a pillow. No one but Carrie believed he would survive the winter. He was sick most of the time and inclined to convulsions. One day in March, he had so many that Carrie asked Dr. House to call Edgar. This time, when he arrived from Bowling Green, there were 2 local doctors present besides Dr. House. One of them pointed at Edgar and said, "If you're going to fool with that faker, I'm through." He left. The other physician, Dr. J.B. Jackson, who had long been the Casey family doctor, remained. Carrie was sitting in a low rocker in the living room by the front window. In her lap lay the baby, convulsing regularly every 20 minutes. And Edgar turned away and went into the bedroom across the hall. Dr. House and Dr. Jackson followed him. He lay on the bed and went to sleep. When he woke, Dr. House was sitting beside him. Dr. Jackson had gone into the living room. The door was open. Edgar could hear him talking to Carrie. "Now, Mrs. House, you can't do what that man tells you to," he was saying. "What he tells you to give your child is poison." Edgar walked in and stood by the fireplace. Carrie kept rocking, staring down at the baby. Dr. House came in and sat beside her. You know, sometimes desperation is a good thing. It pushes people into solutions they wouldn't normally try. It's not going to be a good thing when it comes to solving the national debt. I don't want to see desperation then. It's going to make Greece look like a party in the streets. "You're one of the doctors who told me I have had an operation, aren't you?" "I had to have an operation, aren't you?" she said. "I didn't have one. Now my baby's dying. You can't help. But you don't want me to do what Edgar says. Well, I'm going to do it." Dr. House spoke to her coaxingly. What he prescribes is an overdose of belladonna, he said. "You know yourself how poisonous this is. Of course, he gives an antidote, but how do we know it will work?" "The only thing we know is that the baby's going to die if we don't do something," Carrie said. "This is our only chance. Measure out the dose, Dr. House. I'll give it to him myself." Dr. House went into his room and came back with the belladonna. Carrie administered it. In a few minutes, the baby relaxed, stretched, and went to sleep. "Get the antidote ready," Carrie said. Jackson turned to Edgar. "You have something else," he said, "a peach tree poultice. I don't know how to make it or what good it will do, but you prescribed it. Do you know what it is?" Remember earlier when he was sick, they prescribed a peach tree poultice. "I'll fix it," Edgar said. And if you go, we've talked before about if you go to work and you say this stuff, but if you go to a doctor's office and say this stuff, okay? Doctors make a lot of money. They spend a lot of time in school. They pay dues to these ridiculous professional institutions. They get licenses and degrees. And again, I will also tell people who love doctors and you trust them. There are people who are graduating in the lower 50% of these medical schools, okay? Just like there are terrible lawyers, there are terrible doctors who will cut off the wrong leg and leave sponges inside of you and give you bad medication and all this other crap. Okay? Charlie Sheen claims that some doctors started on Ambien. That's why he did that stuff in the plaza. Sure, Charlie. That's why he did it. That's why everybody takes Ambien and wrecks the hotel room. Anyway, so there's a concern here that he's going to poison this baby. That there's no credibility in some of these things. Sounds like old wives' tales. This is stupid stuff that people tell you. Oh, you know, you throw salt over your shoulder and you have good luck. That kind of stupid stuff. Okay? But When you're desperate and your baby's dying and convulsing, I don't think you have time to argue. Plus, this stuff was not expensive to go get. Didn't like they had to go down to the pharmacy or something like that. Although for belladonna, maybe. He was glad to get out of the house. He wanted something to do. Standing there watching the baby as it lay in Carrie's arms, waiting for it to live or die, was more than he could bear. What could a peach tree poultice be? It couldn't be made of leaves, for every limb in the orchard was bare. He shined up one of the peach trees and picked off the youngest, tenderest branches. They would make a good brew, if that was what was meant. He took them over to the kitchen, a building separate from the house, and put them in a pot, pouring hot water from the kettle over them. Mrs. Evan came from the house to help him. When the brew was strong enough, they dipped towels in it, rinsed them, and carried them into the house. Hours that seemed endless to Edgar dragged on. Then, as he brought a fresh batch of towels into the living room, Carrie looked up at him and said, "He's all right. I knew if anyone could save him, you could, Edgar." He went outside and stood in the cold night, taking deep breaths. Dr. House joined him. I love the fact this guy's named Dr. House. There's no use in... Maybe it was Peter Lorre in a previous life. Who knows? That's why he took the role. Anyway, there's no use in being a mule, the doctor said. You saved Carrie, and now you saved the boy with this trance business of yours. It sounds like foolishness, but it's pretty accurate foolishness. I'm afraid I'll have to believe in it myself. I hope you're right, Edgar said. After tonight, I'm beginning to believe in it too. Standing under the winter sky, watching the stars, and knowing he had done a good thing, he felt that he understood himself for the first time. He had saved a human being, a child, from suffering, perhaps from death, by the use of a power that had been given to him by God. So now at this point, he's starting to more readily admit that this might not be the way of the devil or some kind of freak life or something like that. And Edgar said in his readings that people who do not do what they are supposed to do with the talents that they are given will face innumerable hardships. He said that the universe would do things like burn your photo studio to the ground, get you into a car wreck, drag you through a horrendous divorce until you see the light. We'll see if that's, and that right there is a nonsensical statement to most people. I'll make the decisions I want to make. Don't tell me I should be a plumber when I want to be a lawyer, or the other way around. Right? So he goes on, he starts to feel a little bit of pride from this. It wasn't the greatest dream, it was his greatest dream come true. Wasn't his life meant to be lived that way? Back in Bowling Green, his hours of faith, his burst of faith passed. Every day he saw his doctor friends, their quiet cocksureness, their facile handling of medical and scientific terms, their occasional suggestion that he let bygones be bygones and continued the interesting experiments, bogged him in a melancholy that deepened as he realized that the goal he had now set for himself was the lowest of his life. He merely wanted to be free of debt. There's a lot of people in the United States, that's their number one goal. It should be the government's number one goal, but they're too busy handing out money for their election. In August 1909, the last bill was paid and receipted. After 7 years of labor, he was stone broke. He went to Hopkinsville and stayed at the Hill with Gertrude, Hugh Lynn, Dr. and Mrs. House, little Tommy, and the rest of the family. To keep himself busy and to cover the humiliation he felt at being out of a job and without funds, he offered to move the kitchen over to the house and join it to the main building. It was a prodigious task involving all sorts of impromptu feats. It goes on later that he's talking, I think, to Dr. Lane or Ketchum. And they come up with this idea. And Edgar gets really excited about all of these readings. And at one point when everybody comes back from World War I, Edgar goes into one reading and 8 more come out of him. And 7 of them are for people who hadn't even, they'd just written the letter and the letter was still in the mail. So he was getting this burst of, now he's focused on it, now the powers are coming much easier to him. And unlike this Long Island psychic in John Edwards, Edgar had a tremendous amount of ability well beyond just being able to do health readings. He could see people's auras, like colored light around their body, and interpret it. He said one time that he was about ready to get into an elevator, and the elevator doors opened, and the people in the elevator didn't have auras, and so he said, "I'll take the next elevator." The elevator plunged down, and they died. He could also read people's past lives. He could tell the future. Okay, he could do remote viewing. He also could, by sitting, he did this one trick. This is in another book called The Sleeping Prophet. somebody dared him and kind of were making fun of him that he didn't have any power, so he said, watch this, I'll make this person appear. And so he sat there for about 15 minutes and he thought about them, and then they showed up. And he could manipulate people with his mind. Okay? So on a lot of levels, there's probably never been a more powerful psychic, at least in the past 200 or 300 years, than Edgar Cayce, as far as the broad swath of his abilities. Okay? Now, in the next few classes, we'll get into some of the things that he said about the universe, about reincarnation, about Atlantis, and about how human beings evolved, and all this stuff that is completely at odds with evolution, with history, with biological sciences, and everything that suggests who we are and where we came from. For example, Edgar Cayce's concept was, like for the origins of human beings, was human beings were developing naturally by evolution through primates, and there were spirit beings, ghosts, or whatever you want to call them, hovering around the earth, and they got so enthralled by the physical nature of the earth, meaning they were interested in touching the plants and being inside of a waterfall and touching animals and being a part of this world, that they got stuck there. And God warned the spirits. He said, look, if you keep screwing around down in this earth, I'm going to stick you there permanently. And so that is the story. And you listen to that story and it's like, what? But it comports a little bit with the Bible, doesn't it? In Genesis it says that human beings were spirits who fell to earth. Okay? But it also gives weight to evolution. But he also talked about stuff that there's no proof of. Atlantis. Where are these big temples of Atlantis? I mean, come on. You take a grand civilization that existed 12,000 years ago, you'd have some proof. Cayce claims Atlanteans built the pyramids. I don't think the Egyptian government agrees with that. Do you? The Egyptian government's a little bit sensitive about every other person coming along and saying that they didn't build those pyramids. Why?
Sense of pride.
That's it, part of it, right? You're saying what? We ain't good enough to build you this pyramid? They also don't like to be reminded of the fact that they did use slave labor. You know, the book of Exodus says that. It's not fiction. You know, seriously. Moses was a real person and all that stuff. By the way, Moses had a real bad stuttering problem. Anyway. God cured that, according to the Bible. So anyway. So let me go on here. So now they're trying to figure out how can we make this into more of a business. So on page... And the Cousin Ike thing is on 156. Do not write on your paper. On page 159 it says, he stopped reading and began a letter to Ketchum. It says, on certain conditions he wrote, I will accept your offer. This basically this offer to sort of make money off of this and to cure people. Lane was going, look, I will be the front man. I'll send you the cases, you do the readings, I'll pretend like I came up with the diagnosis all by myself, and then, you know, we'll collect money and I'll split it with you. Right? And I'll get famous as a doctor, and nobody will know that you're the freak who goes into a hypnosis and says all these things. And I'll tell you another thing with like the past life readings. They didn't intend. Edgar never intended to do that, and I'm sure he was shocked out of his mind when he woke up and said, "You were talking about Atlantis." Like what? This is a devout Christian with an 8th grade education. Okay, Atlantis is talked about in like 3 or 4 Greek stories. That's about it. Aristotle wrote one called the Timaeus and the Critias, where he said that the Greek people beat back the Atlanteans. Okay. Some of you have maybe seen that Disney Atlantis thing. So, anyway. In certain conditions, he wrote, I will accept your offer. It is to be understood that my father will act as a conductor of all readings and that a stenographic account of all that is said be taken down, and at least 2 copies of it being made, one for the patient and one for our files. No readings are to be given except for sick people who make the request themselves. Furthermore, it must be understood that I am not to consider this as a profession or a means of livelihood. The company which has been formed is to completely equip for me a photographic studio. He keeps playing with pictures. You'd think if your studio burned down twice, you wouldn't try that stuff anymore. Which is to be mine to conduct as a means of my livelihood. I mean, he goes out and he's a traveling salesman and he loses his voice. Then he starts a photography shop and it burns down not once but twice. The first time with expensive reprints of stuff that he didn't have insured. So he lost... And $1,000 back then was... Yeah, I mean, they cut every part of your body off just to get $1,000 from you back then. I'm serious, $1,000 was like... That was enough for some people to retire on. I mean, you can build a cabin on. And this is when you could like just go knock down trees. Even in 1909, you could knock down trees and build your own house. Now you got to get permits and blah, 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 water and sewer. Anyway. The company is to equip another office for the readings, which I will give twice a day. No, not less than $500 is to be spent on equipment of the photographic studio. For the materials are to be all of the best. When the letter arrived in Hopkinsville, Ketchum was amused. He showed it to the squire, Mr. No, the genial hotel man who was their partner. He doesn't know what he's got, Ketchum said. They wired Edgar to come to Hopkinsville at once. When he arrived, they showed him mail, nearly 10,000 letters. That's part of the answer to question 4. Some of them contained money. There was more than $2,000 in cash. I would say the average salary was probably $3 or $4 a week for most people. So you're talking, $2,000. I mean, most banks probably barely had that much money. That was probably one of the reasons why the Great Depression was so horrible. People didn't have any money; was scarce. You had to be backed by gold, and if you didn't have enough gold, you had no money. Anyway, and so Ketchum asks, "What should we do?" Edgar says, "Send it back. We don't want any money until the goods are delivered." So he goes on to talk about this contract they draw up. So throughout these chapters here, Edgar is starting to accept his abilities a lot more. People around him are willing to accept his abilities a lot more. And now he's starting to realize that maybe I should be focusing on this instead of the stupid photography studio. Or instead of trying to find an oil well in Texas. Like, here's the problem. Why do you think the oil well failed? Why do you think it failed? Was that the point of giving Edgar Casey powers? Is that why the angel gave him powers? What did he ask to be able to do? Right. And so if he's not giving health ratings, he's not helping people. But Edgar thought that, I'll make some money off of the oil well, then I'll take the money from the oil well and I'll build a hospital, and I'll get Lane and Ketchum and David Kahn to all administer it for me, and we'll be able to have the people do the remedies right there in the hospital, and we'll have to deal with these idiot doctors who think they're so damn great because they can read things in Latin, or the degree is written in Latin, or whatever the hell it is. Back then, I told you, doctors didn't have much equipment. A stethoscope and a saw, maybe a big knife, okay, and the hammer to knock you out with. I'm serious. Doctors at one point used to carry a small hammer to knock you out with. Just knock one head. Okay. That's why I laugh at doctors now. They think they're so damn great and so magnificent. Look how wealthy I am. And look how special. Look how much knowledge I have. Like, you used to be butchers. Okay, butcher? You know what's funny? Butchers and doctors carry the same equipment sometimes. You know, the same black leather bag and all that stuff. You know, they both have blood all over them. You know? Anyway, some doctors are good. Some of them are just complete, absolute cracks. And all they do is prescribe medication. You can tell a bad doctor from a good doctor, because a bad doctor will just give you a prescription and just give it to you. There you go. Shut up. Go away. Take some Vicodin. Now you got a drug addiction problem. Have fun. Not only are you an insomniac now you're addicted to Ambien. Have fun. Okay. Sorry if some of you don't like me talking about doctors, but let me tell you something. Why I feel the way I do about doctors. My mother was diagnosed with lupus, and lupus is not cancer, and yet they gave her chemotherapy. And it killed her. Probably 2 or 3 years before she should have died naturally. And so I just can't, it's hard for me to sit there and listen. And there was another incident too. I had stitches in my face, and I went to go get them taken out, and I was just making conversation with the doctor, and I was asking about nutrition, and he goes, "Are you asking me for advice? Because I'm going to have to charge you for that." And I thought, oh, okay. I see what this is. And I'm sure there's good doctors out there. I have yet to meet one. Seriously. Another doctor left a sponge in my aunt and almost killed her. Let's hope your experiences are better. Okay, I don't get Dr. House. I get Dr. House's like stupid assistant. Anyway, all right. So let's watch this video. This is the second episode where she's from the second season. So it's much more into this. And we'll watch this and we'll discuss this a little bit here. We'll talk about whether or not she's displaying elements of stigma. Then we'll talk about the quiz questions a little bit. I want to show you the ARE website where they have some interesting things. They sell products that are based on Edgar Casey's remedies. They still haven't been shut down yet for practicing medicine without a law. But given time, that'll happen. All right, so we'll watch this one again. This is from Season 2, Episode 2.
The drumming circle is just another form of meditation. And tonight is is even more special because my spiritual healer, Pat, is coming. I don't know what the connection is with the drumming circle and my mediumship. All that I know is that I feel better after I do it, and it's almost like I graduate to another level, and in a crazy way, I feel like I channel better.
The drum is a beautiful tool. It's thousands of years old and has been used for communication, for connecting with the spiritual world, for healing. And so have a good journey.
Once that drumming began and I started to kind of feel the vibration, I became very overwhelmed with emotion. Because at that moment I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about Pat. It was my spirit guides coming together with her spirit guides. And I could just feel this ball of energy of them healing her. It was totally spirit.
And when you're ready, slowly come back to the room, wiggle your fingers and toes, and open your eyes gently.
Did you feel something? Did you feel something in your stomach? Right here? As we started to drum, I asked not only Mother Earth, I asked for God's presence and the Blessed Mother. I wanted to give the healing to Pat.
Don't you dare cry.
Because I am who I am. She helped me.
Did you shoot your energy through my little...
I think I did. That's why I asked what you said. I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm a healer. You know, people can say, you know, I'm a cult, I'm this, I'm that. Love you. But I do believe after this drumming circle that my thoughts, prayers, not only were heard, but absolutely answered. April, I always appreciate you coming and bringing your energy.
I told you pit bulls weren't murderers. Everybody thinks those dogs are murderers. Tremendous. Huh? Dalmatians bite more people than pit bulls. Anyway. Alright, so some of the main differences here between what she is doing and what Edgar Casey did. Edgar never really involved himself in this medium stuff. Edgar was also unconscious while he was doing it and retained no memory of this kind of stuff. Yet, his gift was much more oriented towards physical healing, also spiritual healing to some extent. Now, she's helping these people supposedly to release guilt or feelings of, you know, anger or sadness or sorrow or depression, which is very good. And you see her spiritual healer friend there. But again, from the outside, this can look very, very strange. And you saw all the way. Was her son and her husband at the drumming? No. Yeah, I don't think so. And maybe she knows this as a psychic. I'll tell her. What's her name, Teresa? I'll say to you, like, look, Teresa. Here's my psychic prediction. Your wedding or your marriage is not going to last another 5 years if your husband keeps feeling this way about what you're doing. How about that for a psychic prediction? Am I wrong? Am I being ridiculous?
Now she keeps bringing that kind of money.
Huh?
Now she keeps bringing that kind of money.
Right, maybe she'll get her boy toy or something. But seriously, can you live in a house? What happened to John Edwards' parents? Remember his dad was a cop and his mom was a psychic, or one of these people believed in psychics? What happened?
The boy.
Yeah. When you have fundamental, this isn't some small, now, at least for the very minimum, did the husband and the son realize that she did have a power?
Yeah.
But they sort of looked at it like, Mom, why do you do this junk? When we go to the supermarket, we just want to go get food, and you just start talking about dead people. You went to the dentist the other day, and we were giving readings for somebody when you were getting a cavity filled. I mean, I'm telling you, they're like, look, here, from now on, Teresa, here's the gas. We're going to put you under. She probably have some weird dreams. Casey said he had really strange dreams and that he would use the readings to interpret them. So anyway, but there seems to be a very, some kind of disconnect or a doubt or certainly an annoyance from her husband and especially her son. Can you imagine her son asking, can my friend come over and stay the one night? You know what's going on there? That's, you know, she invites somebody over, Bobby comes over, and then Bobby goes back to his house and goes, you won't believe what his mom was doing. Like, that's it. You're never going over to that house again. You know? Because here's part of the issue with the deviance. Deviance is sort of a slippery slope. And people feel that if you believe in psychics, what's next? You know, Godzilla, Bigfoot, dinosaurs, you know, aliens. But once you start believing in this, then it's all downhill. You believe anything. You'll just be gullible. You'll be stupid. You'll believe I saw a unicorn. You know, all this other stuff, right? And people go chasing the Loch Ness Monster for 20 years of their life and never find it and end up wasting their lives and all this other stuff. But the concern here for Teresa probably should be more for her immediate environment and her friends and things like that. But again, like you guys said, it appears she got married before this stuff started happening. The connection with 9/11 is quite interesting too. I'm curious, did she have a relative or anything dying? It just happened. So maybe it's just the weight of 3,000 people dying at once.
Her ability came after.
Maybe it just touched her. You know, sometimes people will get certain abilities when they had horrendous events. You know, just maybe it didn't happen to her personally, but you know, these events that shaped the world and changed things. So here is Edgar Casey's ARE, and I continue a little bit about what he did. Again, he started doing past life readings. He started doing present life readings. He started giving people advice on what jobs they should take. People who had kids, they would come and bring their baby to him, and they would ask in the readings, what skills does this child have, and what type of work should they get into?
See, that's too much.
What?
That's too much.
You think so? Casey often said as well that if people know too much about their future, they can mess it up. So they're only given what they're supposed to be given. 2, that whenever the readings were used for personal gain or material gain, he got headaches afterwards and many times couldn't give any more readings after that. And 3, the readings told him repeatedly that he needs to exercise, meditate, eat right. And one of the things that came out in the readings was, maybe this should be for some of you, that if you keep an alkaline balance in your body, you will never get sick. I haven't been sick for 3 years.
Are you taking a low blow at me?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm just kidding.
Try onion soup, though. Serious.
Wait, what did you say?
No, but I did get sick in 2009, so that's about 3 years. Anyway. But not that I follow Edgar Casey's readings, but I'm telling you right now, like one of my dad's saying, if you eat raw onions, and my dad eats raw onions, and he's not helping right now. But he smoked and he didn't get cancer, so I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it, maybe it doesn't. Maybe not, I don't know. But the point is, Edgar, like for example, in the readings, he gave a list of foods you should eat and a list of foods you shouldn't combine. He talked about all kinds of healing things for certain diseases, even things like lupus or cancer. Let me show you some. Here is an organization called Bar Products. I'll show you this. This is actually out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania. This company right here, and I've never actually called him and talked to him personally on the phone. This website right here, and you see them mention Edgar Casey. They went through Edgar's readings and looked at all these, these home cures and things that he prescribed, and they developed this catalog thing. I'll show you one thing that I found interesting. Edgar Casey said that the Atlantean people used to live for 700 years. Believe it or not, if you look in the Bible, you know what it says? How long people used to live? 300, 400 years?
Noah lived like 900.
Yeah, that there were giants and all this other stuff. Casey says a lot of that stuff was true. Again, if you're a normal, logical, rational person, can that be true? That people live for 700 years? I mean, come on. And frankly, who'd want to live for 700 years? You know, it's hard. I'm not even 40 and I don't like getting up in the morning. You know, I mean, I can't imagine if you're 682 what it feels like to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, Casey did a reading, and one of the things that they wanted to find out, why did Atlanteans live so long? And first of all, they said there was this great crystal that they used to harness to regenerate. Disney took this, if you've ever seen this story. Disney took part of this as their story. Believe it or not, Hitler took some of these ideas and said that they were the descendants of Atlantis. That's what he told people in the Nazi Party. But they said that the Atlanteans had this little electronic device. It's called the Radiac Tower. And you put it in ice water, and you put one diode right here, and you put another one on your ankle, and then you switch them to this one, and then you switch them back and forth. There's a red and black wire. And if you do that, it takes the energy from your body, puts it into this machine that's made out of carbon and steel, and it regularizes and balances, and then sends the energy back into your body. Let me show you. It's on here. I think it's on here. Let me show you this. That's it right there.
Oh, only $225.
So they hand make these things.
They're making a steel.
It's a little thing. It's like this big. Let me see if I can find some of the readings that discuss it here. It says also that if you use it once, it gets used to your body like a fingerprint, so you can't. Other people can't use it. But just to show you the breadth and the detail of what was going on, here's somebody that says they used this. So it says, I believe it has improved my memory, helped me to remain balanced, helped me not to gain as much weight as I otherwise would have, helped me retain a youthful... You know what this reminds me of? The belts that people put on to make their abs look good. Yeah. Trying to see, they used to have the readings down here where it said this stuff. But regardless, so that's kind of strange itself on some levels. There's actually another one. You can hook up to a wet cell thing, and you can put nano gold and silver into your body. And nano gold and silver is supposed to be an antiseptic, and it helps reduce inflammation. And doctors are now starting to realize that one of the things that initiates cancer in your body is inflammation. It also causes heart disease. You get inflamed veins and arteries. You start to get infections, or they start to blow up, and then they become hard. So anyway, but let's see a few of these here. Let's go to Edgar Casey Care and see what that says. And we'll go back to the ARE website here in a second. So here's some of the general stuff that some of this stuff is for general treatments. This one is to get rid of dandruff, I think. It's crude oil, believe it or not, in there. This one, that is, I think, for some kind of lung issue. A lot of this stuff is for skin disease. This is preventive medicine. This is supposed to be stuff you do beforehand. One of the things he said, this is crude oil rinse. One of the things he said was that people would benefit from using castor oil packs. So here's the castor cream. There's a ragweed tincture. All these things. Now, I would say to anybody, do not go and do this stuff unless you know what you're doing. I'm serious about this. This isn't some game like witch hazel. Don't play with this. Seriously, okay? Some of this stuff is dangerous. Pine tar, I mean, this is not like joke stuff here. This is real homeopathic medicine. Now, here's the element. Does the medical community recognize any of this? No, this is quackery. It's the worst type of quackery, because it's quackery that medical pharmaceutical companies can't make money off of. That's why it's quackery in the minds of some people. Other people, it's quackery because it doesn't work. I'm not taking Fletcher's laxative. God knows what that might do to you. Stuff might come out of your ears. Tincture of myrrh. No thank you. Here's olive oil. They have olive oil shampoo. It's actually pretty good. Let's go back to the Edgar Casey website, and I'll show you some of the other stuff they do. They run a school out of the website, or on the campus. They have a campus there at Virginia Beach.
You get an associate's or a bachelor's?
I think you can actually get, I think it's more graduate degrees, and it's in stuff like spiritual counseling. So Teresa probably would love something like that. They should have her teach one of the classes. Yeah. Don't mess with slippery elm either. That'll kill you. I'm serious. So here's some. Let's go to. So here's the actual. This is the hospital back here. This is their main center where they keep all of the. This is where they keep all their archives. Let's look at what conferences they got coming up here. Oh, I love this. Here's haunting experiences. You can go on a campus or meditation garden. Here's Atlanta University. Let me show you that. That's the hospital. It oversets the beach. It overlays the beach at Virginia Beach. And when they bought it, Virginia Beach was a little rural community with a couple bungalows. Now Virginia Beach is like a full-blown tourist place. So here's Atlantic University. Here's the catalog. Let me see, how long is this video? Yeah, let's play this video and see what they think.
Are you ready for a change, a new perspective on life, or a new vocation? Atlantic University's holistic approach to education provides...
Some of your parents saw you even watching this video.
Student-centered faculty.
They would sit you down and have a talk with you.
With real people who care about you and your growth.
They'd be like,
Whether
you're not
it's for
hanging around that
personal
Teresa
growth,
woman, are you?
continuing education, or graduate study, we can help you with your educational goals.
I don't
Next
believe you can
journey
get federal
is only
student
a
loans
click
for
away.
this.
Landon University is now offering
Hey, what are you training to be, a psychic?
in an online format, allowing you to achieve your learning goals
Let's view the
anywhere.
brochure. You can tell. This
Enroll
organization
now.
is not very
Your
popular.
next journey.
Part of the reason is their low production values with their videos, that's for certain. Yeah, that's another problem, right. I guess they assume that you know this. Let's go. Problem here. So here we go. So this shows you some of the stuff that you can take. It's mostly online. Again, they teach things like homeopathic medicine and all this other stuff. Here's here's some of the stuff. General studies, which they define as people who want a wide variety of courses. Applied spirituality, I love that. Consciousness studies. Creativity. Leadership and conflict transformation. Transpersonal visual arts. I mean, I'm telling you, you come home to your parents and tell them that you're going to this school to study consciousness. First of all, they probably think for creativity. I'm going to get a degree in creativity. Right? That this is kook stuff. That the mainstream of America does not accept this as real. And if you align yourself with these people, you're going to get, it's like Bill Engvall. Here's your sign. Okay? Here's your sign. You put it on your forehead. It says, I'm stupid. Or I'm crazy, or I'm a kook, or I'm a weirdo. That's what a stigma does to you, right? Some stigmas are apparent, right, by physical looks. You know, like the Elephant Man. If you look like the Elephant Man, you're a freak. Anybody ever see pictures of the Elephant Man? By the way, Michael Jackson had his bones at one point for some reason. We want to talk about an oddball, okay? Hey, that's what I'm going to go to Teresa and be like, do I talk to Michael Jackson? I'm going to find out what he was really doing. Anyway. So again, if you hitch your saddle or your wagon to these people, you are going to get the same thing that they get, and it's going to be a high amount of like, what are you doing? What kind of weird stuff is this? Here's about Edgar Casey. So this gives you a little bit of information for him. Said Edgar Casey has been called the sleeping prophet, the father of holistic medicine, and the most documented psychic of the 20th century. For more than 40 years of his adult life, Casey gave psychic readings to thousands of seekers. He gave 14,000 in his lifetime. I doubt Teresa's up there yet. While in an unconscious state, diagnosing illnesses, revealing lives lived in the past and prophecies yet to come. But who exactly was Edgar Casey? Casey was born on a farm. We know the story here. So again, and you see this stuff here. One of the things that was interesting that he said, he said that to do health readings, he had to have his head facing south and his feet facing north, and then the other way around for past life readings and stuff like that. So, but again, he had very little ability when he was awake, which is what is so fascinating. You can actually, they don't show it here. I'm trying to figure out, they have this, let me go to the conferences. But if you get a membership to this organization, what they do is they give you access to the database of all the readings. So you can put in cancer or heart disease or something like that. So it'll come up there and you can access this reading. They also send you a CD. Okay? But you see some of the conferences of the people who believe in this stuff too. And again, these people are somewhat kooks. This guy has written many books about it. So has Kevin Tedeschi. He's written books about reincarnation. John Von Aiken has written books about Edgar Casey himself and also spirituality. And you see this here. You know, 4 experts teach what Edgar Casey's wisdom was. Here's hypnotherapy training. Okay? So again, you know, I mean, if you don't believe in this stuff, it's the weirdest, stupid stuff in the world. Here's ghosts.
Hey, ghosts are real.
That's what they believe, at least. But again, some people will say, look, just because you believe that psychics can connect to the dead or they can heal people, doesn't mean that unicorns are real, and it doesn't mean that Atlantis is real, and it doesn't mean men from some other galaxy are going to come and destroy us all or something like that. And if they do come, I'm going to give them Will Smith, because he's killed more aliens on screen than anybody else in the world. Hasn't he? Like, just take Will Smith and go. Take his son, too. Anyway. No, I'm just kidding. I like his son.
Can I go with Sigourney?
Although he's no Ralph Macchio. What?
I go with Sigourney Weaver to open the butt.
Yeah, we'll give her. Anyway. All right. We will continue with this. I've got a documentary on Casey himself that we're going to show next week. We're going to break down some of the beliefs, the differing beliefs of Edgar Casey himself and what he said about past lives. Please hand in your quiz and have a good weekend. And I'll see you on Monday. Make sure to do that other assessment.